Hi children, welcome to our today's class. I think already you are ready for the class. So you have to, if you are not ready for the class, you have to ready for the class and take your textbook and watch this video three times and underline important points in your textbook and do the works. Okay, so like that you have to do the works. Okay, children, we were discussing about in the early cities and the specialties of Harappa. So the continuation of that class, we can continue. So listen carefully. Food for people in the cities. While many people lived in the cities, others living in the countryside grew crops and reared animals. These farmers and herders supplied food to craftspersons, scribes, and rulers in the cities. We know from remains of plants that the Harappans grew wheat, barley, pulses, peas, rice, linseed, and mustard. A new tool, the plough, was used to dig the earth for turning the soil and planting seeds, while real ploughs, which were probably made of wood, have not survived. A toy models have been found. As these regions does not receive heavy rainfall, some form some form of irrigation may have been used. This means that water was stored and supplied to the fields when the plants were growing. The Harappans reared cattle, sheep, goat, and buffalo. Water and pasture were available around settlements. However, in the dry summer months, large herds of animals were probably taken to greater distance in search of grass and water. They also collected fruits like bear, catch fish, and hunted wild animals like the antelope. A closer look, Harappan towns in Gujarat. The city of Dholavira was located in Khatibet in the Ran of Kutch, where there was fresh water and fertile soil. Some of the other Harappan cities, which were divided into two parts, the city of Dholavira was divided into three parts, and each part was surrounded with massive stone walls with entrance through gateways. There was also large open area in the settlement where public ceremonies could be held. Other finds include large letters of the Harappan scripts that were carved out of white stone and perhaps inlaid in wood. This is a unique find as generally Harappan writings has been found on small objects such as seals. The city of Lothal stood beside a tributary of the Sabarmati in Gujarat, close to the Gulf of Kamth. It was situated near areas where raw materials such as semi precious stones were easily available. This was an important center for making objects out of stone, shell, and metal. There was also a storehouse in the city. Many seals and ceilings, the impression of seals on clay, were found in these storehouses. A building that was found here was probably a workshop for making beads. Piece of stones, half-made beads, tools for bead making, and finished beads have all been found here. A dockyard at Lothal. This huge tank may have been a dockyard where boats and ships came in from the sea and through the river channel. Goods were probably loaded and unloaded here. Seals and sealings. Seals may have been used to stamp a bags or packets containing goods that were sent from one place to another. The impression of the seal is known as sealings. If the sealings was intact, one could be sure that the goods had arrived safely. The mystery of the end. Around 3900 years ago, we find the beginning of a major change. People stopped living in many of the cities. Writing sails and weights were no longer used. Raw materials brought from long distance become rare. In Mohenjo-daro, we find that garbage piled upon the streets. The drainage system broke down and new less impressive houses were built, even over the streets. Why did all this happen? We are not sure. Some scholars suggest that the rivers dried up. Others suggest that there was no deforestation. There was a deforestation. This could have happened because fuel was required for baking bricks and for
smelting copper ores. Besides, grazing by large herds of cattle, sheep, and goat may have destroyed the green cover. In some areas, there were floods, but none of these reasons can
It
explain the
appears
end of
as if
all
the
the
rulers
cities.
lost control.
In any case, the effects of the change are quite clear. Sites in Sindh and West Punjab, present day Pakistan, were abandoned, while many people moved into newer, smaller settlements to the east and the south. New cities emerged about 1400 years later. You will read about them in the chapter 5 and 8. Find Egypt in your atlas. Most of Egypt is dry desert, except for the lands along the river Nile. Around 5000 years ago, kings ruled over Egypt. These kings sent armies to distant lands to get gold, silver, ivory, timber, and precious stones. They also built huge tombs known as pyramids. When they died, the bodies of kings were preserved and buried in these pyramids. These carefully preserved bodies are known as mummies. A large number of objects were also buried with them. These included food and drink, clothes, ornaments, utensils, musical instruments, weapons, and animals. Sometimes even serving men and women were buried with the rulers. Okay, children, let us wind up this class. So today this chapter is over. So now you have to read this chapter carefully 2 or 3 times and understand it and underline important points. From this chapter, we studied about the early cities, the story of Harappa, about the Mohenjo-daro and city of Lothal, and the Harappan cities, how they are busy and life in the city, houses, drains, and streets, and new craft in the city, and search of raw material, how they bring raw materials, and about fanes. All these things we discussed. At last, we stopped about the Harappan towns in Gujarat, and about the mystery of the end, how they these uh, famous people were, and all these things we discuss. And so now you have to study this chapter very well, complete all the works inside this chapter, and read this chapter, understand it. If you have any doubt, you can ask to me. Okay, thank you to all.